Good morning, ladies and gents. We're starting a little earlier than usual. Also, seems my camera's off a little. So we're starting earlier than usual today, mostly because I gotta get into words. I have to get into the office a little earlier, and I hit a screw with my car a couple days back, and I kind of slowly lose tire pressure, and I need to make sure I have enough time to get gas, fill up on more air for the tires, and then get to work still in a timely manner. So we're starting a little early. We'll probably end a little earlier, but I really wanted to get a stream in today just to get some more progress in because it's been way too long since I worked on this. One thing to note, I have managed to slap a message board into place. What I want to actually do is get the message board interactable. Also, I kind of need to remember what I was working on. I looked at a lot of the footage of stuff I was working on beforehand. I did a lot of the trap work here. Also, sorry, I thought I saw things twitch. This I want to have interactable. You click on it, it brings up the text, or it displays the text in the description area. That shouldn't be too bad. I'm trying to think of other things, but honestly, I only have little stuff right now, mostly because I've been away from the project for so long, and I'm kind of curious about the Ludum Dare stuff. I've actually been having a lot of fun. Just brainstorming ideas. For those who have never heard of it, Ludum Dare is a game competition. They hold a I actually don't know how often Ludum Dares are. They're pretty often. There are a couple times per year, and there are lots of mini Ludum Dares, and they're essentially game jams. They're not like 48-hour game jams. They tend to be a little longer. They tend to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, if not more. And what they do is they vote on a theme and they kind of narrow it down to something, and then they pick that theme for the Ludum Dare and tell everyone ready, set, go nuts. After which they have a long voting period where you can find out if people thought your game was cool, if they thought it was difficult to use. There's kind of a lot of good feedback you get, and because these are all game developers playing your games usually, you get really good in-depth feedback about what people liked, what part of your system was well designed and what part of the UI was well done versus where they think they might like to see the graphics get tightened up a little bit, or a better frame rate, or maybe some better mechanical design. So for anybody who has, even if you've just started programming in Unity or even GameMaker, if you really want some good experience, do a game jam. Because if it looks good, you can dump it on your resume. And if it doesn't look good, you probably still learned a lot. It probably only cost you about, I don't know, 12, 14, 16 hours of time, depending on how many hours you want to put into it. And even if you don't end up showing it to a ton of other people, it's always good to have that extra experience going in. How do I prototype something quickly? How do I do something with minimal assets? How do I control my game code so it doesn't explode into a giant spaghetti mess, and within the first 4 hours, I need to refactor because I was messy in the first place? There's a lot of stuff you can learn and a lot of stuff you can do at game jams. It's really cool. Especially if you can find a physical location. Ooh, those are the best. Alright, so from what I do remember, we had just added a new piece of combat. Oh, there we go. My brain just kicked in. So we've actually got armor turned on to some degree. Granted, we're missing a lot of artwork for this stuff, but that's fine. It's something that we can remedy eventually, and doesn't need to be in now in order for us to have something playable. We can find something a little later to make it a little more readable maybe, but playable we still have, especially since when you click here and you see the fact that this stuff exists, you can say, okay, I don't know about the quip. I need to figure this one out, but in terms of the whole equip discard thing, you've got that. You've got all the details in the lower left of the inventory. So we definitely have the information we need here to keep making good stuff. So let's see, what do I want to do next? Considering that we just finished up, let's see, I have body parts getting hit in combat, check. Armor protection, check. And also, eventually we actually probably should have weapons that have a certain amount of armor penetration as well. So anytime a piece of armor says, I protect for up to this much, you can have a weapon that says, no you don't, you die. Otherwise, armoring up would obviously be the best way to get anybody to be going in this game. I'm tempted to look at a terrain mask for texturing for Unity. I'm kind of not at the same time. I instantiate and destroy the character menu. Wouldn't it be better that I just disable or enable it? Yes and no. I like having a clean scene. I don't like things garbling up my scene when they're completely unnecessary. And there's no big painful procedure to initiating and destroying. In fact, for me, it's kind of better to initialize and destroy new character menus, because each character menu has a specific set of objects generated for it, and it's easier for me to generate and destroy those objects than it is for me to take an existing one and reshuffle things about, and it's just easier to generate everything at once, honestly. The way that most modern engines take care of pooling objects for you, you don't tend to have to worry about it too much, and it's not like this is something that happens on a per frame basis. So even though, yes, I might be instantiating a decent amount of information here and then destroying it each time I do this, I'm still not going to attack the garbage collector all that often. I might close it and hit the garbage collector, but hopefully the two will sync up a little bit, so as it disappears, it kind of goes, I don't care. And you'll lose about half a frame to a frame or two if it's really, really bad. But otherwise, like, I just can't do this quickly enough to cause myself any concern. And it's a lot easier the way I've currently got it set up. We don't want to start prematurely optimizing things, and that's one of those things that could be construed as a premature optimization. Could be. So, let's see here. Morning, Lemony Fresh. Okay. So I want to just get a basic interaction going here. You click on the board, it brings up the display text, and then it's done, and it sets everything back. We want the player to not be able to walk around while this is going on. We also want to make sure that while this is happening, that they don't open inventory. Like, we want to disable a bunch of stuff. And then once the text is gone, we can move on. No problems. So, question is, have I done anything like this before? I have some stuff you can click on. The container object is kind of a thing that you can click on, and the message that gets sent does interact with the object. So that's one way to do it. And I'm kind of tempted to just go with another, like, click description object. I have a feeling I'm going to have a lot of these. My only issue is, am I going to have anything more advanced than this? Will I need to branch this script off into something larger? For now, I don't think so. I'm trying to think of any weird cases. I already have a scripted description. Kind of close, but not quite. Yeah, I can't really think of anything. I really can't think of anything. Also, something that I noticed here, that here there's a wait for seconds. Don't like wait for seconds when it comes to reading things, right? When you read something, you read it at your own speed. If you're not looking, you don't want it to keep advancing. So I'm actually going to dive in here really quickly. And of course it has to crack open Visual Studio because I haven't done that yet this morning. I have upgraded to 5.3. I'm a little worried. Honestly, I kind of follow with Gary Newman's idea that, 5.3 is great. 5.3.1 is stable. So we'll see how well that actually holds up, but it shouldn't be too bad. We'll see. This is the thing that bothers me. Specifically insofar as we say wait for seconds and then it just kind of continues, right? What we actually probably want here is input.anyKey down, because we're waiting for the single frame. If you press a button and you continue to hold it, it would keep flipping through text far too quickly. So one thing at a time, just one frame at a time. And while, actually, I don't even need brackets for this. While any key down is false, there we go, yield return null. That's what I needed. So we just wait for the text to happen. That should be about it, honestly. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. Now, we've already got a scripted description where it happens on navigation. The question becomes, do we want something that kind of copies a lot of this, right? If we look at, this would be a scripted, instead of a description, I guess we could say this is a scripted object interaction. Or object description. Kind of getting on with the long names, I know. I'm a big fan of verbosity, but there is a point where something like this gets to be a little overkill. I might not need the scripted part, honestly. Object description and a description. I probably want a scene description and an object description over anything else. So let's just do that, because I like it better. Create new C# script. Here's our object description. Description. There we go. And this is pretty simple stuff at this point for us, right? We've already got a lot of the architecture in place we need for this. All we have to do, I'm going to look at the container window for how I do it here, but it should be fairly straightforward. Should be. Open container, close container. Don't care quite so much about that. Oh, this is the container window. That's why it doesn't work. If we look at the item container, this should have the function call we want. On party view click. Yes. That is what I want. And I really hate update functions. So let's get that out of there. And there's no silly stuff going on that we want to ignore, so that's good. Okay, so we're not even interacting. We are disabling the party entirely. We don't want you opening things. We don't want you messing with things. Just stop touching it. Quit it. All right? Okay. So, I apparently need semicolons. That's the Python I've been working with at work, starting to really affect my C# code. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff I've been doing at work is server-based, so that means lots of Python code. And lots of Python code, unfortunately, means Rob starts to lose his touch with C# a little bit. It's not a huge issue, but you'll find any time that you have lots of languages that you work with, switching between them can sometimes be hard. I've only met a few people who can honestly switch between languages or switch between even programming styles without any trouble whatsoever. So don't take it personally if you have the same thing, because I do it as well. It just kind of happens. So we set the mode to disabled. Great, it's turned off. Fantastic. What else are we going to do? Well, now that the mode is disabled, we need to grab some other information. Specifically, from the party, we know the description text is in there. Actually, I'm doing this out of order, aren't I? Because on party view click should not have all of this. We actually should have an IEnumerator. This is what I get for using Unity Engine.ui. Using system.collections. Hey, thanks, Kellogg. Glad you enjoy it. I'm kind of working on getting back in the swing of things. I did have a great C++ stream for a while, very informative for both the audience and myself. Unfortunately, time in life kind of said I needed to take some time off from that. And honestly, work has been getting really crazy, so I did miss the last couple of days. And we'll see if we can't rectify some of that over the weekend, depending on when we're free. But the big thing here is I need to figure out a timetable that isn't the morning that works, because as great as it is that I have this morning slot that just kind of slides right into place, I'm finding that I'm missing enough sleep between work and the early mornings that I kind of start to fall behind further and further. And before long, I have an entire day where my brain is just off. Like, literally, you wake up and it's like, well, I can't think straight. I honestly can't. You try and think of an algorithm and your brain just goes blank. It's flat lines on you. And it's not helpful to get into that state and then be like that at the office. So, I might need to figure out a different time schedule. Might. We'll see. But I'm thinking of changing it. So, heads up. For those who watch this on YouTube, for those of you watching this at home on YouTube right now, because I do upload all of these videos to YouTube eventually. I tend to be a day or two behind, but if I get lazy, I'll fall even further back. For those watching on YouTube, don't worry, nothing's gonna change. I'm gonna keep uploading things and doing my stuff. So, we have the party view click. Great. I'm gonna call it start description. And there's really nothing to pass to it, right? And we need a lot of the same information that we're holding on here. Except that this wait time isn't really necessary, is it? I don't know if I want a trigger once. I'll need to think about that, because that could be useful, maybe. I feel like that's something that I kind of might want to build in, but that I can also leave the functionality out unless I really need it. So when we say start description, we're really just going to copy and paste this, which is worrisome for me, because I pretty much hate copying and pasting anything at all, ever. So the question becomes, how can we do this without copy paste, right? We have common functionality. We have some kind of common base. This honestly might be a good call for something like some kind of... My brain is completely blanking on the word. See, this is what happens. Like, I guess maybe I'm still a little behind on that, on catching up on my sleep debt, but it just kind of, things that you should know off the top of your head just disappear. Let's see here. Yeah, it's just inheritance. There we go. There's the word. It came up. See, it just takes a little time. Maybe it's just early and I haven't had coffee yet. I don't know. So we say start coroutine. Great. We're going to start the start description. Cool. So when you click on it, we have description text. The description text does its thing. Now let's just fix this because copy pasted stuff is never good. What I'm going to do in this case is we're going to create something called a description base. I don't know why Unity likes recentering my text cursor to the beginning of the line, but that's really freaking annoying. And as a 5.3 update, it didn't do that before, so that's really annoying. We'll have to think about it. We do want system collections. We do want the UI stuff. Now, what we're going to do is, this is a classic case where we have two sets of code that we can simplify into a class because they have a very common ancestor here. And the only difference is honestly how we trigger that ancestor. We might even be able to put everything into one... we might be able to put everything into a single class. And that's actually kind of what I'm considering right now. That's an interesting thought, actually. Why don't we just take the scripted description? Great name, I know. But why don't we just add some more booleans to this? Right? We say, no, it's not just... let's see here. Trigger once. We'll call it the navigation trigger. We'll also have another bool that is... And I'm actually going to put these into its own segment. We'll just call it triggers. We have the navigation trigger, and then we've got the party click trigger. And essentially, each time you get sent one of these, we can just trigger it based on that boolean. Seems kind of silly, but honestly, it also seems straightforward, like we're doing this correctly. So maybe this is the expected way to do this? Let's see. So we're going to take the onPartyView click from the object description, and we're just going to dunk it into here. So when you walk to the spot, cool, we can process the description. When we click on the spot, we can also process the description. Tristan, we are working on a first-person dungeon crawler. We'll probably view it in a second. If navigation trigger is false, return. A little early exit, just in case. If the party click trigger is false, return. Simple. And now we actually don't need all these like multiple classes. The stuff I was about to do with the description base, while cool and it makes sense, is actually kind of overcomplicating it. So why don't we just add more editor controls? What, saying Tristan correctly? Guess I've watched enough Great Creatures... No, All Creatures Great and Small, I think. Really old TV show my parents had me watch with them way back in the day. Yes, reload. Also, we don't want object description to exist anymore. So while we're thinking about it, let's get object description out of here. Cool. So when we go to something like this object that needs to be clicked on in order to have its information handled, it's pretty simple, right? We say scripts, we have the Scripted description, I need to change that name. That's probably going to bother the heck out of me. It is a party click trigger whose text is going to be, I don't know, let's make it three strings long. And we'll say something, oh man, this is actually the first object in the game that I want the players to kind of interact with hands-on. And so what I was hoping was to have something ready. But like I said, my last 2 days I've been busy catching up on sleep, and that's mostly been about it. A lot of reading books and a lot of sleeping, and it's good for the brain, but not good for the game dev creative sense sometimes. Let's see here. Using all caps just because, hey, titles, right? Also, I should keep in mind that I think this uses a rich text object, so we might be able to do some cool stuff with something like, say, setting the color to kind of a deep black for part of it and then a dark gray for the rest of it, just to give this feeling of change. So if I do something like that, I actually don't know if that's exactly going to kick in, but it should. And for the king's name, I don't know, who's what's it? Good name for a king. Who's a what's it? It's always good. Any adventurer bringing the, ooh, right, this is where I wanted some dynamic text. I might have to figure out dynamic text another time. One of the ideas being that I wanted to have a story object that mutated ever so slightly depending on a random number. So you start the game and it says, hey, there's a secret relic. You start it again, it says, hey, there's a secret chalice. Like, each time it mutates slightly, and the story won't change entirely, right? It's just a little tweak to our universe. But each time if we tweak the universe, it makes each user have a slightly different run. And we want to make sure that everybody's run is interesting and unique to themselves. That's why I love character creation. You generate a character that is yours. You name it, you get attached to it, and if the game ever kills that character, you sit there and pull your hair out and are like, no, I must load my save game, unless you're playing an Iron Man game, which is something I'd like to do here. And that would be fantastic, right? You lose a character and that's that, right? They're gone. Unless you can pay for that resurrection spell pretty quick, there's going to be problems. Like, I love that idea. Permadeath is kind of scary, but it's exciting in its own way. So, yeah, for now we'll say the magic chalice. And I have to kind of worry a little bit about my line length here, because obviously the editor has no idea when it should start wrapping text, and if it starts wrapping it and I'm not expecting it, it might lay down a sick beat and I'd never know. Wait, no. It would have text show up on a line further down than I want it to, and that would look kind of ugly. So let's just kind of test this out. The magic chalice of Isengard. Because that's where they're taking the hobbits. Any adventure will be richly rewarded. Now go get the darn thing. Rat meow. Rat meow. That's how we make games. Insert memes. People hand us money. That's how games are made, right? Now, already there's an issue. I'm clicking on it and it's not doing jack diddly. Even though the party click trigger is clearly turned on, I'm pretty sure I'm clicking on this box collider that exists here. And yet, not getting anything. Okay, so question number 1. Are we actually, like, landing on anything with this? This is a point where Visual Studio can really start to show for us. No, that's what I wanted. Alright, we connect to Unity. I click. Okay, clearly the party trigger works. It's disabling our stuff. It starts the coroutine. There is a significant amount of... Interesting. I didn't think about that. If you press a key in a single frame, or if you do something like click to activate it, it then proceeds to go, oh hey, a button's down, show the next one. Oh hey, a button's down, show the next one. Oh hey, a button's down, show the next one. Kind of see my issue? We kind of derped. I derped, actually. All we have to do is break it up a little bit. We say, by the way, if there's a key down, we'll set it a frame back a little bit and say, oh, okay, we're going to wait for the next key down event. Otherwise, we're just going to spin through the whole thing way too quickly. So I click on it. Now, I can't help but notice that we've already skipped the first one. Okay, yeah, so that's not a good thing. We don't want to be skipping text in the first place. So it goes through here, and it shouldn't be, but... I think I understand why. And I think we can fix it with an order of operations change. There's no timer here. I mean, that's the reason why I like this, is there's no timer. So putting in a wait time, I'm always a little iffy on. Because what happens is you click, and say you want to click through it really quick, you have a player mashing the button, and your clicks aren't one-to-one with the text changes, and that can be a little frustrating. Oh, okay. Black text with a black background. I didn't really think of that, but it's good to know. Also, that's a long line of text before we started to run out and wrap over to the next line, so I think we're in pretty good shape here. I also like that if you try and do anything... Ooh, that's not good. If you tried to do most anything, it avoided a lot of the hard work, but I couldn't help but notice that when I clicked on the player character, it still opened their inventory. So let's fix that, because, well, we're here. We're doing things, why not? Let's see here. Class type can modify, yada yada yada. Sleep tick, deal damage. Where the heck is it? There's an open inventory function here somewhere. And that open inventory function will be what helps me take care of it. But I don't see it, and that's bizarre. Oh, here it is. Okay. If it's picking otherwise... That's something I didn't think about. So I have an if. If we're currently picking, we only send it to any finite state machine that is currently doing its thing. The problem is, what if I don't want anyone to receive the information? I set it to disabled, but setting it to disabled honestly wasn't doing anything because we didn't have the logic there to handle it. How it goes. How it goes. Alright. So this should now stop me. Every click doesn't matter. Okay, so the only thing I don't like at this point is the fact that the color black with a black background is way too much. The other thing I do like to do is hint at the player whenever I can. So what I'm gonna do, and this isn't something that'll probably, at least the exact words magical chalice of Isengard aren't going to make it to the final version of the game. But once again, I like to hint at things. We're trying to give the player a tip at where to go or what to do. Um, the kings. Let's see. Unearthed and replicated. Not for your pleasure. But trying to think of the right words for this story moment. And I'm just kind of putting something in place. It's one of those kind of well-known things when you're trying to do creative writing that sometimes just writing the first thing that comes to your mind, even as placeholder text, can be helpful and lead to something a little more in-depth and more inspired later on. So I'm trying to put something that isn't just silly. I'm trying to kind of go in and say, well, okay, we need a name for this king, right? He is not King Who's a What's It. Let's actually come up with a name for the guy. I actually have, maybe I don't have a name for him. Interesting. I thought I did. Kind of tempted to use an old school like name generator. See if there are any like D&D name generators floating around. I want kingly names, though. Heroic character names. Here we go. Silenith. What? These things are always fun. They're kind of silly. They don't generate decent names, but... Ling. Joan. Really? Ah. King Troit. Okay. Not bad. Not bad. I definitely have heard worse. Okay, we also have this generates weird names. Severus? You mean like Snape? No, I'm not taking that name. There's some things you avoid, and ooh, I like Rylan actually. But then Jerry, like, it's Mad King Jerry, guys. Oh no, pass. I do like Rylan, though. Bradley is not a bad name either, but Bradley makes me think of Full Metal Alchemist's Bradley, and that's not... There are certain connotations to names, and while a lot of them are personal and based on people you know, if it's something common that your audience may understand, like, if I make Full Metal Alchemist references all throughout my game, I'm not sure my audience would get it, because not every video gamer is also an anime nerd at the same time. Yes, they tend to go hand in hand, but not always. So I'd kind of worry about making references that would seem weird or out of place to a player who doesn't know Full Metal Alchemist. So Bradley, while a nice name, has connotations to it that say good but possibly evil. I'm not sure I want that to be the case, or at least if it is the case, I don't want to hint at it so early on by just saying a name and have everyone kind of groan and go, oh god, this trope again. But Rylan I like. King Rylan, that's a good... Another thing I like to do is I take words, I dump them into Google Translate, and I translate them out to a couple different languages and see what languages come up with cool stuff. Croatian is one of my favorites. I'll put a word in, I'll find some synonyms for the word, I'll kind of go, okay, let's try some different words, translate them around and go, okay, I'm going to use a name that's similar to this Croatian word, but not quite. So at some point I was looking for a name for the moon, and I came up with, because if you think of folklore and how people tend to name objects in folklore, there tend to be stories revolving around all of this. And so to bring the world to life, if you can tell those stories, that's amazing. That's something that I think Pat Rothfuss does very well. If you look at the world that he's generated, he has things that are very specific to his world, and they tell stories beyond the one that he is attempting to tell. You can see that the world is full of more interesting things than what he is just writing about, and sometimes you really want to know about it, and then he just doesn't tell you. And that's neat. There's this unknown, this more interesting but unknown piece of the world that you can't discover. When he went on to write The Slow Regard of Silent Things, it was fantastic because here is a character who is interesting, who has a story, clearly, but who we weren't told that story initially. And by not being told that story, it piqued, I know, some people's interests. And when that book came out, I know a lot of people who picked it up off of pure curiosity of like, what is this character? Who is she? And what is she doing in this world? I don't want to read about the main character for a bit. I want to read about Ori instead. And it's amazing. So, let's see here. The magical chalice will be richly rewarded. King's Messenger. Is copies the right word? Do they have copies of a map? I guess so, yeah. Reproduction. No, copies. We'll keep it at copies for now. I don't know, I'm trying to think. I bounce back and forth on stuff like this, because sometimes you want the words to fit the world, and sometimes you just want to use the right words for English to work. I'll figure that out later. Synonymous with no, is will not be tolerated. Hey, good. I'll put a period on the end because people who post bulletins like to write correctly. I assume if a king is any good and he's got somebody writing things for him. I like the teal here, kind of highlights. This is something that's not just interesting, but also something that maybe the player should take note of by changing the color. It kind of clues them in on, oh, I should pay attention to this. Maybe maybe somebody's trying to tell me something with this different color text. Maybe. Old German names are also great. Ludwig, Dietrich, Ramona. I definitely follow that. Obviously, you're going to get some silliness if you start to deviate too far. And obviously, things change when you want non-human names. If you want something that's a little off the beaten path, then obviously, if your world has room for that, and if that is something you want to be existent in your world, then go for it. If it feels too out of place, you can always remove or clean up or fix it later. Even if it's a main character's name, that's kind of what find and replace is for. It's for, clearly it's for author remorse when they come up with a bad name for a character. Now, the one thing I'm unhappy about is the fact that I'm entering text directly into Unity. Eventually, what I want is the following. I would like to be able to put text into a file, probably a Google Doc, where I can review all my text in one place and then export it out to Unity, probably in something like a CSV format, because this is the one part that stings a little when you think about stuff like localization, and when you also think about trying to find that text somewhere is terrifying, right? Like if I want to fix the name of something, I have to hunt down every single spot in the Unity editor that I happen to have a string variable that uses the new name, or the old name, and update it to the new name. Problem is, what if I can't find them all? What if I miss one, right? Maybe that's what I'll work on next, honestly. That seems like something that I might want to do. Because if we're thinking about this, and we're creating good tools for ourselves, that is honestly something we need to handle, is getting the Google Doc put together so we can write text into it and export, have some kind of pipeline between Google Docs and Unity that ties the two together. Because without that, even if there's an export step in between, I can write a script to do an export and then an import into Unity. That's not the problem. The problem here is, does there exist a good, easy path that doesn't obfuscate the information that sits inside of this file? And I think there's a good way to do it. I'm thinking of a few ways. One of them is just to have essentially key value pairs. You say, here's a unique identifier, here's the string of text that should go with it. And then what you say is, here's the unique identifier, and here's the language I'm using, or the language file I want to use. And then it loads the text based on that. So then you can have, say, a bunch of replications of the same text but in different languages, and you can load them in at runtime, and if somebody changes the language, it's not a big issue. You just open a different file, read the same information out of it, you're done. Problem solved. Localization, done easy. Alright, so we've got the scripted description. God, I really want to change the name of that class. It's just too much. It really is too much. Maybe story description might be better. I think that works better. So let's do that. Probably shouldn't have closed Unity, or not Unity, Visual Studio, but whatever. You'll also find I accidentally nuked my Scratch folder. I didn't mean to, but while working, I ran out of space in my repository. When I deleted and re-downloaded the repository, kind of made my head hurt, and I forgot to replace one of the pieces of information that I desperately needed, as it turns out. Scripts, scripted, yeah, no. This rename to a... This is a story description. Actually, let's do this the right way. Let's use this SVN thing we've got and do it correctly. I'm not noticing any meta files. That's the only thing that worries me slightly. I'd like to have the meta file come with, but obviously it's going to complain, it looks like, so... Oh, also, I would kind of mid-game. Removing files mid-game is probably a terrible idea. Let's... Oh crap, did I just lose the information that I just typed in? Here's our story description. Script can't be loaded because it doesn't think there is a object. Oh gosh. Here's one of those few things I'm really unhappy with. The way that Unity handles script names is terrifying. Oh look, somebody's got a link for Google Sheets for Unity. I don't know if I want to pay 20 bucks for it. I'm kind of curious how they do the information sending. So it's just so you guys can see what I'm poking at. I'm kind of curious how they did the information tie over, because if you look at this, they don't really show how the information goes from Google to Unity. It just doesn't seem to be. Huh, I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of weird. Also, it looks like it wants to continue pulling information well after the game is complete. It's not a one-time load-in, but it's actually a tool to leave the two synced at all times, and I don't think I want that. Thank you, though, Zthrax, for the link. It definitely is helpful to see stuff like that. It's not something that I think is going to be helpful for me. Okay, story description. Yeah, renamed. And now, come on, Unity, play nice with me. I just want this. There we go. And it kept my text. Good. Good. That's really what I was worried about, that it would dunk all that text that I wrote. And I know it's not the most important text in the world, but I'd like to not have to redo work if possible. Alright, what else? I honestly think, because I only have about 5 to 10 minutes left, depending on how long I think it's going to take to get to the gas station, refill my tires, and continue on my merry way. So, I do like making things myself when possible, although I do appreciate also the ability to just say, screw it, I don't want to do it, let someone else do it, and then coming in and because someone else is handling things, you don't even have to write the code, it just kind of works, and that's cool. Hello, this might be more along the lines of what I'm looking for, and for 25 bucks, depending on how much time you're willing to spend, right? This comes down to how much time do you have, and what is your, what's your information wanting to look like? Okay, whenever you go to buy a plugin, keep 3 things in mind, alright? My pinky's not entirely down because there might be a 4th that if I remember, I'll put that one up too. But 3 things for now, right? Does the tool do what you need it to do? That's obviously the most important one. Because if it doesn't do what you need it to do, whatever. Does the amount of money you're paying for that tool justify the amount of time you would save? Because that's also important, right? If you're short on time, it might be worth paying more money for a plugin just because you don't have the time to code it yourself. If you got all the time in the world and no money, save the money for something else in your project, right? If you have no artist, don't go around buying code assets when you could do it yourself. No need. Third, and this is the one I consider incredibly important, does it have source access? Because if something goes wrong, and say it starts crashing, right? Or say it doesn't do things the way you want it to. It does what you want, but it doesn't do it the way you were hoping it would. It takes 5 minutes to import a file. It does something incredibly stupid. Having source access or not can make or break having that plugin. Because A, you can see how the plugin does things. So maybe you could do it yourself and do it better once you own the plugin. Or the other way is that you could come through and say, oh, I know what's wrong. Let's just tweak this, rip this out, and be done with it. Right? We don't have to fight about it. We don't have to worry about it. It's just done and taken care of. I kind of like this, the way they expect to essentially use it like a database. That's something huge that most people don't seem to recognize, is that I would be using this like a database. So the fact that they think of this as a database is great. And in fact, the other thing I like about this is it looks like I could slap information into here based on, say I wanted to make a weapon, say I wanted certain stats. I could actually create a lot of information inside one of these and use it like a database. So I wouldn't have to be in that Unity editor all the time. I could actually be sitting on a plane with my phone out and still be adding more content to my game because I had this cool way to do it using Google Docs. That's really neat. I really can appreciate something like this coming out to Unity. I don't like the underscores. So see, already we're looking at how they do things. I don't like the underscores in front of things. Boy, I'm not a fan of that, but I can overlook it because that might just be the way that they handle certain things. I'm not sure. I would like more screenshots, more anything here, so that I could understand a little better how they're doing stuff. I like to look at the files inside of these kinds of things. So you'll note DLLs tend to mean closed source access to things. Obviously, there's a lot of C# files as well, so maybe it's not so bad. But in terms of looking at something to purchase, you got to keep in mind all of your limitations and also what you want to be working on, right? If you like making tools, then buying tools is probably not the right thing for you. Docs pin. See, okay, this guy's got a video. That's smart. Being able to show off that now this is a lot of video, right? First 6 minutes, then 8 minutes, then another 5, right? I don't want to spend 20 minutes watching videos to understand how your product works. Don't care. I just want to be able to look at this and see how I think it works. And once I think I know how it works, a 5 to 10 minute video explaining things is great. That's really the easiest way to handle stuff. Detect your data from memory hacking tool. I'm sorry, what? Also supports detecting data types from memory hacking. Not too worried about memory hacking, honestly. If somebody's going to cheat themselves of a single player experience, I don't care. I really don't. If you're going to hack in the most powerful weapon into the game and give it to your starter character right off the bat, you're probably going to find that the game's not all that exciting in the first place. So yeah, just keep in mind what you need, and keep in mind what's in the package. That's really the easiest way to make sure you kind of take care of yourself when it comes to buying things in system. You'll notice also Unity likes to have suggestions. Look at their suggestions. They tend to have a pretty good idea of what they're talking about. And so, like, here's a localization engine. If all I wanted was localization, this might be the easiest way to do it. And it looks like they have tie-ins for some other basic database systems. So don't be afraid to look at free solutions, because honestly, there are some great developers that do a really good job of free solutions. Not because they want to make a buck, obviously, but because they think this is something that they needed. Someone else might need it too. Once again, scary things. I see DLLs instead of C# files. I see some C#, but it looks like it's for NGUI and the Unity GUI, and I don't like that. So I probably wouldn't go with something like this because, well, closed source. That's scary. I don't like closed source. I like to see how things work. I like to see how the game is interacting with it. I actually saw Artisy stuff at GDC. I'd be curious about what kind of stuff they've added, because they had a lot of great ways to attach formatting, information, screenshots, and that kind of stuff. Also, going between a written script and your game is fantastic. But at the same time, it might be complete overkill, and that's fine. I left behind a lot of great Sky solutions when I was looking at them for my game, because this looks fine. I don't need dynamic weather. I don't need to be able to, change the coordinates, the latitude and longitude of the player, and have the world change with it. Like, I don't need that. That's just so overkill, it's not even funny. So I left a lot of those solutions behind. How it goes. Alright guys, thank you very much. I realize that I've been talking so much that time has flown and I do have to take off. Thank you again for joining me. If you follow my Twitter, you'll see when I'm about to go online, or you'll know when I'm not going to come online, as has been the more recent trend. Although don't worry guys, I'm not slacking off. I'm literally working and sleeping a lot. So we'll work on that, we'll clean it up, and we'll see if I can't get my sleep patterns a little more normalized so that I can get online again. If you want to see how I got here, my YouTube channel is also linked below. I'll put all the new videos there, and you can follow from day one how I got to this point with cool skies and terrain and buildings and a party that walks around and can loot chests and do all kinds of other great stuff. If you want to see the process from end to end, it's long. But maybe it's worth it if game design is something you're honestly interested in. Or if, you're working in Game Maker right now and want to transition to Unity, it might be a good way to learn. That's, I think, about it. Hit the follow button, please. I got nothing else, though. Take care. Have a great day. Hopefully I will see you guys again very soon. Take care. See ya.